thank you so much. Can everybody see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Excellent, thank you, Gail. Chair, Professor Levak, Professor Daniel, thank you for this opportunity. I'm very excited about this 3 days. It will be a very difficult task to speak after the previous two speakers, who has obviously a very wealth of knowledge, and but I look forward to this. Thank you. So I've been Director of Research at UWC for close to 5 years. And the biggest challenge that I've really faced is changing this mindset that we see on the screen at the moment. As researchers, we are programmed that if you do not publish, then you will perish, so your career is over. And really what researchers were, or scientists were, less than 100 years ago and what we have today are two vastly different definitions. So it's extremely challenging because yes, our subsidies are extremely important, and we get our subsidies from our publications and our outputs and our creative outputs. So irrespective of whether we're looking at local collaborations in research or international collaborations, the challenge is really the same. How do we change mindset from researchers? So what am I really talking about? When I'm talking about changing the mindset of researchers, it is really about this national discussion that is happening at the moment. And I'm very excited that our colleague from the NRF is speaking in the same session, because they currently speaking about a dialogue or creating a dialogue and very far advanced in that dialogue in really defining what research impact is. So the question that I would like to pose is, what is research impact? Is it defined in terms of academic impact or societal impact, or is it both? And both of those are extremely important for the stakeholders involved in this process. I like the definitions that I found on various sites. If you look at the one definition was, research impact really refers to the diverse ways in which research can benefit individuals, yes, organizations, but nations through increasing effectiveness of public service, policy, and for me, extremely important, the impact on the society. So what impact do we have on society? And this is the conversation that I've been having with researchers at UWC for the past, for my past term, the past nearly 5 years. Yes, you have research. Yes, it answers very important questions, but ultimately, what is the goal? And the pandemic, I think one positive we can take from it is that this is not just about the individuals and the organizations, it is about doing research for the greater good. So really, this goes beyond the contribution to academic research. And then I really like this last definition taken verbatimly from Grokudu's blog. Impact or research impact is important because it helps keeps us focused on the overall purpose rather than the process of research. And what do I mean by this? If you look at this is typically when I have a conversation with my students or a researcher, this is typically the conversation that I would have. This is a project management plan for research, and it really starts with an idea. Then we look at partners, whether they're being collaborative partners locally or internationally. We look at funders, we look at staffing, we look at what will we do with that IP in the end. So we speak to a research office, we speak to tech transfer office. And then once all of those are in place and we've sent in our proposal and we receive funding, we then go into the activities. Now we have these various stakeholders that become involved in the research, and typically they are the researchers only. Those funding proposals will speak about outputs and outcomes, And you see over here, I have this last one highlighted in red, because I think this is where we're missing the boat very frequently. For many, many, many researchers, the process stops over here before it gets to that impact. So how do we change this conversation? This is really about a conversation about planning and as early as possible, engaging with communities that can be impacted. So what am I trying to say? It should really be about doing research that is relevant. And we have various guiding documents that speaks very broadly to those needs of our communities and what is needed to take the communities forward and to develop those communities. And you have just listed the NDP 2030, UWC's IOP, the SDGs, and Blue Sky Research I have in there because my question still is, Blue Sky Research is important because it can lead to other questions as well. But you will see I have something over there that I think is extremely important and that we leave out very, very often, communities. How are we allowing communities to, and I almost want to use the very strong words, to collaborate and almost dictate to us what type of research they are willing to work on with us? And to give an example, Hoodia, the appetite suppressant. Khoisan people have been chewing it on it for thousand years to suppress appetite. And when they would go hunting, they would be chewing on this plant product, and the person could run for ages and ages and ages and ages. There was an engagement with the Khoisan community, but the question really is, yes, from a science perspective, it was understood, but what was the impact on that community? Did it lead to improve living conditions for that communities? Did it increase job opportunities? And how much engagement was right at the outset? So that red arrow that appeared last is really where I think the impacts block should move to. And we should really be engaging with that block before we go through this whole process, because this is really what would answer all of those various questions. So let me give you an example. And I think, once again, the pandemic has given us an amazing opportunity to really see how this came into play. So our colleagues from dentistry, and you know that the dentists are at extremely high risk. They work in the mouths of potentially infected, COVID-infected individuals, and the risk to exposure is extremely high. So we had a need, engagement by that group of 3 researchers with this community and with the patients to see what would be comfortable and what their needs are. Coming up with an idea, finding a potential solution, doing the scientific studies and ending up with a paper in a very prestigious journal. But what does that mean? It means absolutely nothing to the community out there. That led to a product being designed. And that product has been patented by UWC and minimizes the risk significantly to the dentist working on a potentially infected patient. So you can see this is one where there is a direct impact from research on a particular community, dentists. So what Professor Jones raised a very important point, that we need to communicate. So after we have those publications, and yes, we have the patents, that is still this traditional way of thinking. What else is missing? I think we've never seen the level of distrust ever in the history of science that we're currently seeing in academics from the wider community. Social media is driving discourse in various disciplines, and to use COVID as an example again, even COVID. So it's become our responsibility to take that research and yes, develop it into products, but also to communicate. And these are the various ways of communication. And you will see there is even some international communications, some local communications. So it's really building the trust of the community. And once you have that trust, communities are willing to be working with you. One step further, it is not just about taking it into one platform. Social media and other forms of media has created so many opportunities. And as you can see, UWC in various aspects over this past 3 years, impacting communities directly. That's from our colleagues from CHR, community, from arts, puppeteering, various colleagues speaking on television and on radio, vaccination centers and sharing facts. And then I think what we very often forget, and this is my last slide, yes, there is research that brings in funding for the university, that's a plus. There is engagement with a community, so we build trust with that community, that's a plus. That builds our standing, that's a plus. It brings in extra collaborators, that's a plus. This is a slide, and it's only based, and it's from our media office colleagues, and this is my last statement. Over this past year or so, during this pandemic, just over a year, I asked them pull coronavirus engagement, media engagements, and just look at this. Potentially, we had 806 million engagements from the community. Social media engagements based on readerships and viewerships. What does that mean for the university? In the end, and this is a term that I learned only end of last year, advertising value equivalency, 25.698 million rand. So just engaging with communities, going out there, speaking to newspapers, writing those op-eds, taking that research 5 steps further has essentially led to the university receiving 26 million rand worth of advertising. So you can see that it's not just about international and national collaborations between researchers. It is also about collaboration with communities, but then that engagement does not stop once we have the data. What do we do with that afterwards? And it's sharing that data in a way that the communities can understand. This is something that I'm very passionate about, and this is something that I will definitely take forward, and I encourage all faculties to have this discussion with, especially the young researchers, right from the start in the planning phases. Thank you, colleagues.